If I have to drink battery acid one more time, I'm gonna want to talk to a manager.
POV, you're running the final session for your year-long D&D campaign. The Lich descends upon the battlefield, and you tell the players to roll for initiative.
And then 2 rounds later, the Lich is a bloody pulp of hit points on the floor, and your players are asking how much gold they get and if they level up or not. I mean, you're glad you didn't kill anyone. In fact, you weren't even close to killing anyone. The fight was actually kind of too easy. Once the players saw the main boss, they just kind of bum rushed them, spent all of their spell slots and class abilities, and then in 2 rounds, the Lich just kind of died. In order to improve boss fights, I went off my meds for about 6 weeks and spoke to God. They had no idea what I was talking about, they weren't any help, but when my soul finally reattached to my body, I think I figured something out, which is this video. This is Dice Brain. Refreshing. A lot of advice that you'll find online will be something along the lines of, oh, just increase the boss's HP, just increase the armor class, just give them legendary actions. And like, sure, this is going to help your enemy last a little longer, but if you want to have like a 6-round final battle, you're going to have to increase the boss's hit points and armor class like an absurd amount. Legendary actions are, they get a bit closer to the root of the problem, but like, come on, we can do better. Legendary actions are your community college courses where it's like, yeah, they'll do for now, but are they really going to help you get what you want? We need to jump into the minds of our players. We need to figure out what they're thinking before we get into our design. If it's a boss fight, the players are going to be expecting some deadly, super challenging encounter. And then they get into the room and it's just a guy. And the players are thinking, okay, I can fight a guy. And so they just get all of their class abilities, they get all their spell slots, they get everything that they can possibly pull out, and they just throw it all at the one guy. It's the final fight. There's no reason to save your resources. Just go for it. Increasing the boss's armor class or hit points isn't going to change that choice that the player is going to make every single round of combat, which is going to be to throw everything they have at this one guy or girl or dragon or demon or whatever your boss is going to be. I don't know your game. The problem isn't that your boss is too weak or not strong enough. The problem is that your players don't have any choices in combat. The only choice the player has is to spend everything they have on the one boss. So what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be figuring out ways to give your players some more options in the fight. We're going to choose our bad guys. When we choose our villains, I'm going to be using challenge rating or CR as a guide for what monsters to use. I don't really rely on challenge rating. I just use it to help weed out what monsters I'm not going to use and then pick from there. I typically make my encounters more challenging than the book suggests them to be. My players can always just run away if the fight is too difficult. I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. Also, before we pick our monsters, we're also going to be picking a theme. The theme for your fight is going to be what you stick to. If you have a necromancer, your theme is probably going to be undead. If you're fighting a dragon, your theme is going to be dragon stuff, fire, volcanoes. Now that we have a theme, we're going to actually be picking our bad guys. There are 3 categories of bad guys you want to fill out. You're going to want to pick your boss, your boss's minions, and your heavy hitters. They found me. You probably already know who your boss is, but do your players know who your boss is? If you want to run a good villain, your players have got to be aware that this villain, this main boss guy, has been whatever entity has been causing all of their problems. The players should be aware that this villain has some sort of motivation that are at odds with the players' motivations, and the only way to solve this conflict is going to be this final fight. Your players should know this already. Also, your boss should be the toughest on the battlefield, the highest CR, the highest level out of anyone. This is going to be the most difficult person to kill. The challenge rating should be like the Xanathar chart +2. Next, you want to pick your minions, your grunts, your mooks, your guys that are like, under challenge rating 1, maybe under challenge rating 2 if the players are high level. You can just toss as many of these guys as you want. They're fodder. You know, I don't even track hit points with these guys. If they get hit or if they fail a saving throw, they're just dead. The point is, you're going to be using a lot of them. They're typically 2 categories of grunts that you're going to want to have. You're going to want to have some frontliners, some guys who can use melee attacks, and then you're going to want some archers, some people who are going to be using ranged attacks that just kind of sling attacks and pepper damage across the party however you see fit, and the melee guys are going to be protecting them from getting attacked. The player should be able to reliably spend their turn to kill at least one of these guys. Next, you want to find your heavy hitter. Alright, these guys are going to have a CR about equal to the party's level. This is going to be your Vader to your Palpatine. This is your boss's lieutenant, their right-hand man. You can give them however much armor class, hit points, damage that you want to give them. What you really want is a lieutenant whose fighting style complements your boss's fighting style. If your boss is like a wizardy mage type character, the lieutenant could be a tanky knight. Clerics make for really good lieutenants, some kind of spellcaster that can heal and buff the boss. You could also have like some kind of assassin that at the start of the combat hides and sneaks away, and then on round 3 or 4 all of a sudden, boom, sneak attack from the shadows. You can have 1 or 2 lieutenants per encounter, maybe 3 if you really want to get crazy with it. I've done 3 before, but you want to have a lower challenge rating if you're going to have 3. Now we could just have an empty room with the main villain inside of it, but that would be pretty boring because the players are just going to bum rush the main boss and then your combat's over in 2 rounds. So here we have the final fight. We have our party to one side and then our bad guy necromancer to one side. Well, our boss here is the necromancer, and so I'm going to start by just putting a wall of zombies right in front of him, blocking him off between the rest of the players. I don't expect these zombies to kill anyone. In fact, I'm not even going to track their hit points. There's so many of them. If they get hit, I'm just going to roll for undead fortitude. They're probably not going to kill any of the players. They don't do that much damage. But what they are is an obstacle that keeps the players from just running straight at our main villain. I'm also going to add a line behind the wall of zombies. I'm going to be adding a line of Minecraft skeleton archers. They're not going to be doing much damage, but they're just going to have bow and arrows, and they're just going to be shooting at the players, disrupting concentration checks, just peppering them with damage, slowly chipping away at their hit points. And the players not going to be able to do much about it because there's a wall of zombies right in front of the skeleton archers. Wall of Zombies, by the way, is 100% going to be a spell that I homebrew later. Also, with the skeleton archers, you could just be an annoying little shit, you know, when it's the skeleton's turn, you gotta pick who they're gonna be shooting at next. You gotta be like, who am I gonna shoot at next? Oh, I think it'll be the wizard. One problem that we might have is the party just breaking through this wall of zombies too early, so I'm gonna add a zombie ogre right here. And with this zombie ogre, well, 1, it does a lot of damage, and 2, it has op attacks. It has a larger radius in which it can use op attacks, and if the players try to run past the zombie wall, they're just gonna get bodied by this ogre's reaction attack. This encounter right now is pretty good. It's pretty solid because the players have a lot to choose from. All the while they're being peppered by skeleton archers. We have our main villain slinging spells. There's a wall of zombies they're trying to bust through with a zombie ogre that's wrecking house. Breaking through the main line, it's going to be pretty tough but manageable, and once they break through the main line, it's not looking good for our boss man right here. So I'm going to add some Undead Knights. They're called whites in the book. We're going to add some whites, and what the whites are going to do is that once the main line is broken through, they are going to try to stop any of the melee characters from getting into melee range with our boss, while our necromancer here, Caliber the Vile, will be able to fly away, be able to cast Dimension Door, be able to get into an area where the melee fighters won't be able to just get up and attack them. After you run a few combats with your players, you start to pick up on a few habits that they have. This requires a little bit of advanced GMing, but I know that this character's player tend to run away from combat if it looks a little too tricky. I don't want that happening. I don't want them running away in round 3. Then they have to wait 3 more rounds for the combat to be over. They're just sitting there bored for 2 hours. I'm going to have a little wraith here apparate behind the party so that when he tries to run away, there's going to be a wraith there greeting him. Oh no, it's a wraith. And then the bard's gonna be like, oh well, I can't kill this wraith on my own, guys. And the party's gonna be like, dude, we're fighting the encounter that's right in front of us. Stop trying to run away. And so the bard will soon learn that they should stick with the party if they don't want to get bodied by this wraith. If they are somehow able to win a 1v1 with the wraith, then they've earned their escape, and I'm fine with it. I think the fight is getting more difficult with more enemies I'm adding, but really, I'm just making it more fun. I'm just putting the vegetables and the brownies, and no one's realizing. We can add some more to this. There's some more we can add here. Let's give our main boss some acolytes. Some like level 1 clerics, like clerics of the death domain or whatever. Like they have cure wounds, they got bless, they got all the healing spells, they got all the buff spells, they got like healing word. So if our bad guy here ever takes some damage, then the acolytes are just going to be able to just simp for the necromancer and just heal him. We got just a gaggle of simps right by our boss. This is perfect. What else we could do if we want to make this a bit more difficult, if we want to add a bit more pressure, is we're going to try to flank the players. We're going to add some vampire spawn on the sidelines right here. We're going to start them farther back because vampire spawn are pretty hard to kill. So we're going to have them basically enter the combat a little bit later when the players have already killed off some enemies. What we're going to have them do is we're going to have them run over on the sides, have them attack the characters at their sides so that the players, they get closer to each other, they start to get closer to the middle, and when they're closer to the middle, then they become easier to flank, they become easier to encircle, and then the zombie wall can start to fold in around on them. And then once they're encircled, they're pretty screwed. It's going to make the combat a bit more nail-biting, a bit more climactic. Remember, they don't have to kill all of these enemies. They can just kill the necromancer. They just need to kill the boss. That's all they're here to do. That's all they need to do. They just need to figure out a way to do that. When they're encircled and the necromancer is surrounded with minions and bad guys, the players are going to have to think more tactically of how they're going to kill the boss, how they're going to complete their objective. There's a lot of guys here. My combat encounters look like Beatles album covers. Now, it's not just bum rush the boss, it's do I go after the vampire spawn that are flanking us? Do I go after the zombie wall? How about the zombie ogre? There are archers shooting at us. There are wights that are protecting the bad guys. Bad guys getting healed by his little acolyte buddies. We've added a lot of enemies. I would write down, like on a piece of paper on your DM screen, what the goal of each monster is to do, so that when it's their turn, you can just look down over at your note and you'll know exactly what the monster is supposed to do. Another thing that I do to make turns a bit more important is I like to add a timer, a little bit of a ticking clock. I say the Calibur Levial is doing a ritual, and at the end of 6 rounds, the ritual is going to be complete. And what is the ritual for? The ritual, I'm glad you asked, the ritual is to summon Orcus. I bought this mini so the players wouldn't think that I'm bullshitting, like, oh yeah, sure Nico, Orcus is gonna be a thing. No, I got the mini so that they think, you wouldn't have bought this if he wasn't going to try to use this. We gotta stop this ritual or else Nico's gonna want to use the mini that he just got. I never actually used Orcus. I never intended on using Orcus, but I just got this really expensive prop to put the fear of God in my players. 6 rounds I feel like is a good amount of time. Your average D&D is going to last like 3 to 4 rounds. So 6 rounds I feel like is plenty of time for a combat encounter. I had the ritual last about 6 rounds. I feel like 6 rounds is enough. Your average D&D encounter is going to be like 3 to 4 rounds. So when you say you guys have 6 rounds to do this, every single round matters. Every single turn in each round is going to matter. Whatever you do, it has to be to stop this ritual or to figure out some way to stop this ritual, or else you only have 6 rounds. You can't just keep fighting and fighting forever until you win. You can't run away and come back and then finish the fight then. No, you have to do it now or never. Your ticking clock for your game can be anything that seems plausible. It could be a volcano erupting. It could be civilians that your characters have to save. It could be a flood, a slowly filling flood that's filling up the fight that's happening. It could be a castle that's under siege. It just needs to be something that tells your players you can't keep fighting forever, or else this is going to stop you no matter how well you're fighting. Another thing that I like to do to make the combat a bit more complicated is that I like to add terrain, some way to restrict the player's movement. I add stairs in multiple levels. There's holes that the players could fall into, bridges, trees, difficult terrain, stuff to restrict the player's line of sight, stuff where they have to move around and make their movement dynamic in the combat. Bonus points if the terrain is particularly helpful for the boss. It was at the end of Forge of Fury, I think, and there was this like moat that surrounded the dragon's treasure. It was a black dragon at a swim speed, so the dragon would use their breath weapon against the players, and then it would go dive under the water, and the water was so murky the players couldn't see through it, and so they could just sort of kind of attack the water. The dragon had full cover, and then once the breath weapon recharged, jump out of the water, use their breath weapon, go back down into the water. It was a really interesting bit of terrain that really helped the villain out. One way you can make your boss fights a bit more unique is by homebrewing some special abilities that your boss is able to do. You're saying like, this isn't just any old orc war chief, this is Ulfric the War Painter. I like to make these unique abilities something that your boss can just do in combat, like no roll or anything like that, they just do it and it happens. Like if I was going to run a necromancer, I would just have them summon undead underneath the player's feet. It's like you're fighting and then the necromancer and then zombies just appear underneath their feet. It's a necromancer, it's thematic. Maybe if I wanted the necromancer to appear like really villainous and selfish, I would have them siphon away the hit points of their acolytes. So the acolytes just get all their hit points sucked out of them, and the necromancer just gets healed all the hit points that the acolytes had. It should be like once, maybe twice a combat, and it should be really, really powerful. Just think about your theme or like the characteristics of your boss that you want to reinforce and make some sort of ability around that. Like have your orc war chief go into like this rage and like Hulk out. Have a green dragon fill a room with this opaque poisonous gas that the players can't see through. You can have a giant take their hammer and slam it into the ground, causing a shockwave. Go into a packed movie theater and loudly criticize the movie that's playing. Use an elevator in a burning building. Join my Patreon, punch a police officer. If I'm an influencer, will you do whatever I say? You feeling influenced? Leave a comment if you're feeling influenced. That was Dice Brain. Like the video and subscribe. Bye.